What? The food?
Well, buckle up.
Back in the old time machine.
13th century texture, taste.
Very fishy.
Preservatives, Cornish passionage.
Oh my god, I've never even thought of that. The themes of empire, mission, inheritance, and destiny.
Hello and welcome back to What the Food, the podcast that uncovers the history of the world through food. My name is Miles Dickinson. As always, I'm here with my best mates, Andy Cantor and Dom Gray. Today, we're dipping and diving into the world of oysters. This is New York's oyster obsession.
Hello.
I love me an oyster. You boys know.
I do.
You do.
Yeah,
9
as I was
a.m.
writing this episode, that was going through my mind the entire time. You at a fish counter at the start of a 2-day walk, ordering 3 oysters.
Risking it all.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Oysters are one of those things, like when I see them, I don't see them on sale very often. And when I do, I just have to go for them. And if that's at 9 a.m. in Whitby on a, early March day, so be it.
So be it.
So be it.
Yeah.
Like we probably set off after you sucked on your oysters at like 9:30, and we probably didn't see another toilet until 5:30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that was fine. Oh dear. Yeah, I mean, I think I was fine. The oysters were fine. It was a rogue choice still. I mean, I put the entire 2-day trip, in jeopardy when I decided to eat those raw bits of shellfish.
We barely done 200 steps. Yeah.
It was a reckless early choice.
Yeah. It was at the stage where if we'd have left some in the car, we could have easily gone back and got it. That's how close we were.
Yeah. And also, my dad is allergic to them. Yeah, so, it could have easily been, a genetic issue that resurfaced at the start of that walk as well.
Yeah, you didn't tell us that. What would we have done? We were halfway around. You started having a fucking shock.
At the top of the hill.
Yeah.
These oysters are sitting heavy.
Windpipes closing up.
Yeah.
Oh dear. No, but thankfully I was fine. And it was actually the dodgy curry on the last night that was what gave me the food poisoning.
That's Scarborough. That's what happens.
Yeah. I was asking for it though, wasn't I? Eating oysters and then ordering a lamb madras from a place with 3.2 stars.
We should have just got a load of naan bread in.
Yeah. It's like I wanted to be ill that weekend. I really wanted to throw up.
What were you trying to dodge? What event had you been signed up for?
Yeah. Anyway, oysters. I'm excited to learn more about the history because they're a funky, strange thing that us humans do. We grab these very hard-shelled creatures and we go through a lot of effort to crack them open and suck out the alien-looking innards. But they look good. They taste good.
Sellers on it.
They don't look good. They don't look good at all.
They don't look good. That's a crazy line. Tell you what does look good though. 50 episodes looks good. This is episode 50.
I forgot to mention that.
Before we get into those little oystery bits.
50, boys.
Halfway to 100, that.
50.
Good with numbers.
Yeah, 50. If you would have asked me what stage we would have been in when we were recording the first episode, at episode 50, I'd have been like, I don't know, like living in Texas, sponsored by Huel.
Hello Fresh was my ambition, but
Hello Fresh,
Huel. Yeah, like maybe we're slinging a few Casper mattresses.
Prime.
Maybe we've rebranded. We're now the rest is food.
Nice
history.
Nice.
Got Gary coming in next week. Big Gary Lineker.
What's his food?
We call him Gary.
Yeah, Gaza.
I think we're Gary V then for a minute.
No. He's so irrelevant now.
Yeah, we've got our own What the Food coin as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a few NFTs on the go.
Yeah, but
here we are.
Anyway, here we are.
Almost there.
Yeah, any day now. I wouldn't change a thing though, lads. Yeah, we fucking love it.
Yeah.
So
we love it.
Yeah.
Grateful to all the listeners that are still here. And all the new ones. Don't know it yet, but this is going to be the new favourite pod.
All of you. The damn lot of you. Welcome.
50 and it's to 50 more, eh? Anyway.
It's to 50 more.
Fingers crossed.
Oysters. So we're talking about oysters today, but we're specifically talking about oysters in New York City.
New York City.
Now, I've never been to New York. I've not been fortunate enough to go. I think you have, Miles, right?
I've been to New York. Yep. Didn't have any oysters.
Did you see any oysters?
No. I don't think I did.
Yeah, if you'd have seen them, you'd have had them.
That's
Yeah,
that's
it's true.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. First
Those
day of
two
the
things.
holiday, got off the plane. Yeah, before he's checked into the hotel.
Yeah. 1 minute, babe.
Joanna's got like a Broadway show lined up. She's got everything planned in to see.
You know what I get? I've got to have them. I've seen them, so I'll have to have it.
No. Yeah, I wish I had, but probably for the best, actually.
You see, for me, it's not somewhere I'd consider getting an oyster or like famous for oysters.
Yeah, the water around New York. I always remember you see after they have like hurricanes and stuff, and they've just got like grimy water everywhere. Not warm.
Or any city for that matter. You know.
Well, yeah. No, I'm not just bagging just NYC. I'm sure like oysters from New Delhi would probably be worse.
Be right. They'd be right.
Bloody
They're some of the worst.
So maybe New York's got them beat on that. But yeah, it's any city really. You're right.
But if we were in like if we were in New England, for example, on the coast, I'd be more tempted to get a punnet.
So the old version. A punnet.
A netted bag to clank about the town with.
Once upon a time, before the city, New York City, was drowning in Ubers and finance bros, New York was absolutely obsessed with oysters. And I don't just mean like, oysters are having a moment. It was a bit of a trend. I mean like full-blown, all-consuming shellfish mania.
It just don't feel right, that, does it? Just doesn't seem like the place.
Right. Don't feel right.
Don't quite sit right with me.
Yeah. I mean, maybe the opulent side of it, the kind of having them served on crushed ice and that kind of fine dining, glamorous New York City life that people were living at that point, maybe. Manhattan just doesn't feel like the setting for it, the natural habitat for it.
Let's follow this one down. Where would feel like the perfect spot for a Milo oyster? Like your dreamiest oystery spot.
Yeah.
On the New Haven rocks,
The New Haven rocks.
I've got a boiled crab in one hand and a punnet of oysters in the other. And I'm just...
Wow.
Me and Davey O'Donnell are shooting the shit, having a course light.
Wow, fairs.
Fair enough.
And, eat some oysters.
Nice. Right, and a boiled crab. Don't forget the boiled crab.
And the boiled crab.
No. Oysters in this time were food, obviously. They were money. They were a lifestyle. And if you were a bit unlucky, they were probably one of the last things you saw before getting shanked in a dodgy oyster cellar behind a saloon. We'll get into oyster cellars later. Crazy little places. But this wasn't just a trend. It wasn't just a cute little trend. It wasn't sort of pumpkin spice levels. It's not that sort of shit. It was pumpkin spice lattes if they also funded organised crime, shaped class identity, and occasionally gave you typhoid.
Oh, you don't want that from your dinner.
You do not. And their obsession, New York's obsession, was so intense that laws were even passed to stop people from gorging themselves to death on oysters.
Wow. I love how they have to make a law for that. Just been like, you're out of control, guys. We're going to have to regulate this.
Losing their heads.
Wow.
It's like fucking a million Milos living in New York City at this time. Just losing their heads and the amount of oysters going around.
Yeah, these cobbled streets are nice. They're not cobbles, they're just shells. Leftover
Well,
shells.
Funny you say that. We'll get to that in a moment. That was actually a thing.
Wow.
Stumbled upon something there. You were being very silly, but you actually stumbled upon something.
Being a silly boy is normal.
And you're quite right, Dom. It was a social equalizer. You had posh lads eating them, pinkies raised, and you had working class lads necking them. Everyone enjoyed them. I'm eating oysters here.
That's it, yeah. Bloody hell, man. Oyster. Oh, do you want an oyster? Come here and get an oyster, will you? 2 oyster, 3 oyster, 4. It goes a bit Australian sometimes.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Every so often it is a good day, mate.
Good time, mate. You want an oyster, will you? There's a fine line between, an Italian mobster and an outback lad.
So here's what we've got coming up here today. We've got oyster bars that doubled as brothels. We're going to dive into those and see what kind of world was lurking underneath the streets of New York. We've got an African-American entrepreneur who became New York's oyster king and ran a secret stop on the Underground Railroad. And then we're going to go into the utter madness that is competitive oyster shucking.
Ooh, I thought you were going to say eating. I don't like the idea of shucking. Like, it's a dicey thing to be doing at the best of times.
It is.
If you're trying to rush it, losing your palm there.
Well, because the knife is sharp, but then also the shell is sharp as well.
It's sharp, yeah.
So you're holding a lot of sharp stuff.
It's like when you see your mum trying to open an avocado. It's like, no, it's not for you, this. Put it down. you can end up hurting yourself here.
It's not for you, this.
It's not for you, this, mate.
Now, today, we're going to go through the story of the Big Apple's little obsession. We're going to go from the rise to the fall, the slightly fishy comeback. They are fishy, right? They are fishy.
Well,
they are fishy oysters.
Shellfish.
Briny.
Yeah,
briny is probably a good.
Got a lot of salt in them, haven't they?
Well, there's like, if you think about it, there's like bits of the sea just in there. A little pool of the sea still in your oyster. You kind of just sip in a gulp of the sea.
A little pool of the sea.
Yeah.
With a thing in it, you know?
Yeah, you are right, actually. Yeah, you're just sucking on a bit of seawater.
But it's fresh, it's nice, it's refreshing. It's like when you have a little bit of Tabasco, a little bit of lemon juice in there, a bit of salt. Not salt, a bit of pepper. It's just like...
More salt.
Yeah, more salt. Yeah, have you got any salt with this, please? Have you got any sea salt?
Sea salt specifically, yeah.
But there's something like refreshing about them. They're just, I like it. Don't know. And the cold, usually really ice cold. It's the whole thing. It's not just the flavour, it's the...
Do you know what I have for that that's kind of similar? Like a glass of water. Cold, refreshing,
salty.
Yeah, salty.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't know. Yeah, it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing.
So let's get to it, shall we? Let's get shucking. Long before, imagining like pterodactyls. Long before the Dutch rocked up with their silly wooden shoes in 1609, the Lenape people.
Clogs.
Oh, it's just uncomfortable, is what they are.
Yeah, I don't know how.
They're just stupid.
I know we're meant to be talking about feed here, but what the fuck were they thinking when they were like, right, we need something for our feet? I've got some wood. You want wood shoes? No, that's clearly not going to be comfortable.
Practically any other material.
Yeah, you pick like something really not flexible. Going to get splinters. Just fucking enjoy them anyway. Back to the.
Do you know why I think they this is just off the top of my head. Do you know why I think they created them? It's because they don't have any hills, like mountains, do they? In Holland.
True.
So they were like, how can we make our lives a bit more difficult getting around?
Bit of a challenge.
Wooden shoes.
Bits of a challenge, yeah.
So before the Dutch rocked up in 1609, the Lenape people were already running the oyster scene around what would become Manhattan. We're talking thousands and thousands of years of, thousands of years of coastal living, and they were absolutely crushing the seafood game. So these were kind of Native Americans, Lenape tribe, they were called, living it up, no white people around, great times.
Love that for them.
For the Lenape, the oysters were basically the prehistoric equivalent of cheeky Greg's sausage roll. You know,
why
fast.
Not? It's there to be taken.
Exactly. Fast, easy, didn't cost you a penny. You didn't have to prepare it loads. You didn't have to fuck around. Just jump in, grab it, and away you go.
Yeah. It's readily available, easy to get. Tasty treat, protein. It's good for you.
We know Andy loves his protein.
We do. So one of the sources that I used for this episode was a book called The Big Oyster, History on the Half Shell by Mark Kurlansky.
History on the Half Shell?
History on the Half Shell, yeah. I thought when I first read that bit, it was kind of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle style vibe, like the history of those guys. I was going to be reading like real intricate stories of Leonardo and Donatello, but oysters.
Imagine my disgust.
And he has this to say on the Lenape people and their experience with oysters.
Until the Europeans arrived, the Lenape had no way of...
just told you how he said it. He's been saying Lenape the whole time.
Lenape, you white fuck.
First time on it, Lenape.
Lenape.
Oh, dude.
Lenape.
Proper Brexit vibes, mate.
How you told me to say it.
Exactly.
I'm doing my own way.
Yeah, that's the most English thing ever. Just like accent is just isn't a thing. It's just straight up. It's how it sounds.
Right, round 2, here we go. Until the Europeans arrived, the Lenape had no way of prying open an oyster shell. The small abductor muscle that holds the shells closed on a living oyster exerts about 22 pounds of pressure. Rather than force, some sort of heat was used to kill the oyster, which relaxes the muscle. Only about 120 degrees Fahrenheit is needed to kill an oyster. Indians taught the first Europeans in New York to wrap oysters in wet seaweed and throw them onto hot coals until they opened.
Yeah, sounds like the au naturel way to do it.
The way they've got clams, same way, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then you're not getting that raw experience. I think that's what a lot of people like with it, isn't it?
I don't think you're cooking them fully. You're just cooking them enough so they die, so they open.
Easier.
Exactly, because they've not got shucking knives, right? They're not got blacksmiths and shit. You know, they can't make these tools. They've got really primitive tools at this moment in time, so they're having to find a way to do it, right?
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And these guys ate a lot of oysters, the Lenape. Now we know that they ate a lot of oysters because they left behind mountains, literal mountains of oyster shells.
Wow.
Archaeologists actually call them middens, which is just a fancy way of saying massive piles of food waste.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing these take a long time to degrade then, like biodegrade. So
correct.
It's like calcium, isn't it? Basically just making yourself some limestone that you've made at home kind of deal.
So these heaps, or these middens, weren't just a few discarded shells here and there. No. They were enormous. So enormous that when the Dutch arrived, they actually mistook them for natural hills on the land. As you're getting close, it's just a tower of eaten oyster shells.
yeah, that moment of realization, like,
shells.
wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
You'd actually probably think, if you didn't know there was people there, you'd actually probably be a bit scared. Like, what animal has fucking consumed all of these? Like, there's some Goliath creature waiting for us.
Yeah, it cracked them all open with its teeth.
Exactly. Now, one of the biggest of these middens was actually in Lower Manhattan, and it was so massive that it inspired the name Pearl Street. And that's why Pearl Street in Lower Manhattan is called Pearl Street, because it's paved by discarded oyster shells of the past.
I'm imagining a strip of just oyster restaurants along there at the moment in modern day.
Probably not. No, probably not, as we'll get to in a moment, because shit happens and humans and, well, specifically white people are involved. So we ruined everything.
Can't be right twice there, Milo. You tried to guess twice. Unlucky.
They didn't just eat the oysters, the Lenape, either. They also dried them, they smoked them for storage, and they essentially gave them enough food for the winter. So they weren't just like a fresh thing that they could just use there and then. They also preserved them, and they became like an efficient and sustainable way of living off the land, which is nice.
Very nice. I can't imagine oysters look any better having been preserved.
No, you're probably right.
No.
Yeah, what would they look like?
Just drier, more shriveled up versions of what already looks quite
but just in
unappetizing.
a jar of vinegar floating around.
Yeah, that's not the one for me, Chief.
Yeah, it's going to be off-putting, that, isn't it?
I mean, you're putting that lightly.
Yeah. Yeah. Would it be worse than the pickled eggs at fish and chip shops? I think it would, right?
Yeah,
it would.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah, I think ancient, Native American preserved oysters would be worse, yeah.
Yeah. I imagine it looks a lot like jellied eels.
Yeah.
Sort of vibe about it. Never eaten that, and I want to keep it that way, I think.
Yeah. I'm not kind of a fan of the idea of cooked oysters massively. I've never had them cooked. I know that's like a popular way to eat them, but I don't know. Something feels wrong about even cooking them nowadays.
I think that would be the only way I'd enjoy an oyster.
Yeah.
By cooking it with a bit of cheese on it and other ingredients that take away from the oyster.
Yeah, because you do get you get like deep fried crispy oysters, don't you? And you can get
I'd be about that.
Ones that are cooked in the shells with a bit of garlic butter and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I'll try it, but get a bit hungry now actually.
You just started daydreaming for a second there, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I kind of got lost there. I got lost there in the buttery goodness of a fried oyster. Yeah.
So yeah, essentially the Lenape people loving life, enjoying oysters, everything's hunky-dory. And then, as I said, 1609, the Dutch come along, specifically a bloke named Henry Hudson.
Oh, we know that name.
Yep. Forever young, I wanna be forever
young. Shucking oysters in. We've done this song before, actually. On
We have done
episode,
this song
I'm
before,
sure.
yeah.
It's becoming a theme, this.
Yeah.
Forever young. Yeah. It was
Henry
Uzbekistan.
It was Uzbekistan.
I wanna be Uzbekistan. Shout out.
Shout out Uzbekistan, the country that Miles didn't know existed. Thought we were joking about.
Yeah, I'm still not convinced it's real, actually, but never mind.
For the 100th episode, we're going to go to Uzbekistan and do it live from there.
Yeah, just to prove to him that it is a real country.
Yeah, and I'm gonna stand on the highest hill and sing Uzbekistan, I want to be Uzbekistan.
Wow, that's going to be so good.
Yeah,
Brilliant. Anyway, Henry Hudson arrives in New York, 1609. A bloke that was technically looking for China.
he's looking for China.
kind of-
Ended up in Manhattan.
Yeah, he sailed straight into New York Harbour and basically said, "Yeah, this will do."
Yeah, I think this is China, lads, you know.
Yeah, we've done it, boys.
Look at those big hills over there.
And were the natives still in the area at the time?
They were. Yeah, they were chilling.
So you might turn up and be like, these look like quite strange Chinese folk. Very different tribe.
Very different. Very
Little
different.
does he know he's on a completely different continent.
Yeah, he's miles away. He's miles away.
Where's all the bamboo I've been hearing about?
Not here. Well, he's Dutch. He's not English.
Oh, where's all the bamboo? Yeah, you hear him coming from a mile off because he's got clogs on.
Yeah.
Where's all the bamboos?
The only person I correlate or think of, when I try and speak Dutch or have a Dutch accent.
Let me guess.
Go on.
Goldfinger.
Goldfinger, yeah. That's it.
Austin Powers.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
But every time I'm watching Max Verstappen or I don't know, another Dutch player, Xerxes, open his mouth, I'm expecting him to sound like Goldfinger.
Yeah.
The pit stop was not so great, but not so bad.
Yeah. And what is when he's going through all the different food combinations, isn't he? He's like,
Yeah.
cigar and a waffle, crepe and a cigarette. Oh, God.
Now, as you'd expect, Mr. Henry Hudson didn't find the gold, the spices, or the mythical lands he was looking for. What he did find was the seafood equivalent of a Las Vegas buffet. The harbour was teeming with oysters. So many, one explorer claimed that you could walk from Staten Island to Manhattan on oyster beds without getting your boots wet.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Absolute bollocks, of course. Not true. But
That's so crazy. Yeah, completely made up. He could have said anything.
Yeah, could have said anything. But it paints a picture, I think. The waters are rammed, essentially.
Yeah.
Full.
And is there a geographical reason that oysters are so prevalent around there?
We'll get to that in a moment.
Okay.
I think the main reason is it was the bay itself, I think, is just quite a nice kind of geographical formation for oysters to be clinging onto various things, and the rock formations under the sea. Under the sea, bottom of the sea, around the sea, in the sea are good for oysters. There you go.
Right. Got you.
Biological.
Okay.
When I was growing up, I wanted to be a marine biologist, so there you go. Could have done
There
it.
you go. You basically just fulfilled your dream right there. So they need little coves where they're not going to get washed away, where they can kind of settle and just kind of soak up
Chill.
all
Yeah.
the micro things.
Hudson and his merry band of colonizers wasted no time. By the 1620s, oysters were everywhere in the newly settled New Amsterdam, I believe it was called at that point. Sold on street corners, slopped into tavern bowls, eaten raw, fried, stewed, and it was obviously still moving, still wriggling, wasn't it, when you were slurping it down? It was everywhere. Early Dutch reports describe oysters so big that they had to be cut into 2 or 3 pieces just to eat them.
That's crazy. What?
Milo is so
what,
excited by that.
They're like this.
Yeah.
Trying to get it down.
Yeah. Do that again. Click that down. Put that on the social, please.
Oh, God.
Let me just put a mark in the clip. Thank you very much.
Yeah, there it goes.
Milo absolutely glugging it down.
They had to be cut into 3. That's
Yeah.
a lot. That's massive.
Two-
I've never
two
seen
to
an
three
oyster that big in
pieces.
my life.
No. Some even said they were as big as dinner plates.
Bloody hell.
Dinner plates.
It's a big
That's too big, though. No,
thing.
because that's just amplifying the grossness of how it looks. Because it's even bigger.
One Dutch account from 1656 states that
anyone in the area needs to not have travelled far to reach into shallow waters and pluck oysters like ripe fruit.
they're everywhere. You can just dive in, treat yourself to a dinner plate-sized oyster whenever you feel like it.
Fucking hell. No wonder it's such a populous city. It's just free scran hanging about everywhere. Just get yourself in there.
Yeah, tuck in. Enjoy. But here's the kicker. New York Harbour wasn't just a never-ending oyster bar. It was also a massive filtration system. Did you lads know that a single oyster can filter up to 50 gallons of water a day?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot.
50 gallons.
Yeah.
A lot, right?
Bloody
And back then, before industrial pollution turned the Hudson into the murky brown soup that we know today, there was so many oysters in the harbour that they could essentially filter the water supply in just a few days.
Wow.
So like every few days, the water within the New York harbour, because of the oysters, was being filtered and was the freshest it could have been.
It's kind of a bit sick, that, isn't it? That they're all just scranning it down and basically low-key slowly poisoning themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. It is pretty mad though that oysters are essentially wet Brita filters. That you
Yeah, basically. I've seen a couple of videos where they're like, they get like dropped into, like fish tanks and stuff. And then it's like a time lapse, and then it does just get mad clear. Nature's Brita filter. You're right, mate.
Yeah.
But then we're eating that, so that's, capturing all this. You wouldn't eat a Brita filter after it's been chilling in your little Brita tank for
Speak for
3
yourself,
months.
mate. They were right little zesty kick with this Yorkshire lime scale.
Yum. But I guess all the more important to have clean water to begin with then for the oysters to be in, because if you've got, shit in that water, then it's been cycled through your oyster and it's going in you if you're eating it.
Yeah. Shit in your belly.
Oh, Milo's turned woke, everybody. Look after your environment.
Miles and Greta having a laugh. Here they are.
But I mean, obviously this is way before you've got the industrial revolution and things. So I guess the Hudson was probably all right, but
You make a very fair point.
people will be eating oysters that have come from waters.
It sounds like
Dirty
they're
shit.
bloody eating an oyster coming from anywhere back in this day. They bloody loved it.
Oh, it gets way worse. Way worse. humans are just humans, We took this perfect little ecological miracle that was happening. We just absolutely shagged it into the ground.
Absolutely battered it.
Yeah.
That had probably evolved over thousands, if not more years of this one little area. Oh my God, the conditions are just so great that
Miracle.
oysters they're here and they filter the water, and all these other animals are just having such a great time because it's so nice and clean here. And then we just came along and we're pretty yummy this, isn't it, actually? And it's fucking everywhere. Yeah, I've had it. And then just absolutely twatted it. And then here we are.
Here we are.
Can't help ourselves.
Overfishing, pollution, greed, all of which would eventually destroy New York's oyster population. The Dutch were blissfully unaware. They didn't know. They were slurping their way through the golden age of gluttony, and they didn't even know.
You never know the good old days until you're not in them anymore, mate. And that's the biggest tragedy of life, that.
Amen, sister.
Amen. So by the 19th century, oyster beds became the city's equivalent of gold mines. You had newly discovered reefs making headlines, like kind of gold veins being discovered, or oil strikes happening. Newspapers were breathlessly reporting on every new find, and it was as if the city's kind of entire future depended on how many oysters could be yanked from the ground.
Single oyster found, Hudson River, south side.
Basically.
Buyers line up on the docks from all over town to try and buy the oyster. Auction rised to $14 per oyster.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what it was. Well, we've got a news article later that I've highlighted. Pretty much what it was. What it was.
Impressive.
But they were everywhere. You couldn't walk down a street without passing an oyster saloon, an oyster and coffee saloon, an oyster and lager beer saloon. You could pair it with everything.
Wow.
Pair it with everything.
But with coffee, so they're having it first thing in the morning. What's the problem with me having it first thing in the morning? If they're having it with a coffee, I'm doing it how they did back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I not?
I think
I'm not.
Oh, yeah. Morning coffee and 4 oysters. Thank you.
I makes me feel sick that The thought of scranning an oyster in the morning. It's almost makes me feel as sick as chonging on a cigarette in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
So yeah, anywhere walking down the street, you can find somewhere to have an oyster. One British visitor wrote in 1857 that
the rich consume oysters and champagne. The poorer classes consume oysters and lager beer.
Makes it way more classy that they call it lager beer rather than just lager, I think.
Yeah.
Got a nice ring to it.
A lager beer.
Lager beer. Yeah.
There's also nothing wrong with oysters and lager beer. So call me a poorer class if you want, but that sounds banging.
Oh, for sure. They were, though. They were the great equalizer. Everybody ate them, but how you ate them mattered. The wealthy dined on oysters at elegant establishments like Delmonico's, pairing them, like what the quote we've just said, with fine wines, champagne. They used elaborate silver oyster forks. It was, a touch of class. But on the working class side, dozens of people, crowded saloons, lager beer, washing it down, sucking it down.
Yeah. I mean, it does feel quite elevated, doesn't it? Like when you get oysters that come with all the shaved ice and look nice. They come on a platter. You've got slices of lemon. It's nice looking, isn't it? Yeah.
It's mad how hard work you have to go to make it look even slightly nice.
But it does. It's, the shaved ice, glistens in the light and it creates an alluring platter that draws your eye, and you've got the fresh garnishes, and then you've got your oysters propped up on there, and it just feels like you're getting something special,
Have you got like a plate of oysters in front of you now that you keep looking at?
No,
getting inspiration from.
I wish I'd been
just like
been
basically
that organised.
Singing to this plate of oysters.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't trust any oysters this far inland.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
They're not getting there quick, are they?
So in 1827, something happened. A freakishly strong tide revealed an oyster reef in the East River that no one had noticed before.
Wow.
Bloody hell. Pandemonium.
It was pandemonium. These were not just any oysters. They were dubbed Saddle Rock oysters. And they were so absurdly large, Miles, you'd lost your head, that only 25 could fill a bushel basket, where the normal basket could hold 250 oysters.
They're like 10 times bigger. Bloody
10
hell.
times bigger.
So oysters one of those things that just continuously get bigger if they're just left to their own devices?
Correct.
Right.
Correct. They're like squids do that, don't they?
Yeah, I think
is it lobsters?
Grow. Maybe lobsters.
Lobsters, maybe.
Squids, some crustaceans. Maybe just all crustaceans, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So you're telling me, though, that somewhere deep down at the bottom of the ocean, there's an oyster the size of a country.
Oh my God, yeah.
You've just given Milo a life goal there. He's going to get as rich as Jeffrey Bezos just so he can have a submarine to go after the oyster the size of Iceland.
Yeah, like that silly idiot that went down in the sub that crashed. Miles is going down doing tourism for big oysters.
At least he died doing what he loved. He's an oyster hunter at heart.
He's got his 360 controller, fucking navigator.
Ready to go.
His Master Chief Halo 3 Special Edition helmet on.
Just in case the seal breaks, this will protect me.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
That's the thing. It could be a thing. There could be a massive one. We just don't know it.
Could be. Yeah. Think how much water's passed through it. Be a lot, wouldn't it? A lot of water. I managed to find a newspaper clipping from a newspaper article that was around from around the time where this Saddle Rock oysters were discovered, and it's a good one. If you'd want to read it for us, Mel, it's a good one.
Great oyster placer. Millions of dollars were found. Great excitement along shore. Oysters is oysters. They are for sale in considerable quantities in the city of New York and are prepared for eating at sundry places, from Buttercake Dick's to Delmonico's.
Buttercake Dick's is definitely where you'd frequent.
Yeah,
can we go down to Buttercakes again tonight?
Buttercake Dick's. Wow, what a name.
You reckon you can get away with that now? As a restaurant? What would it be?
Questions are going to get asked if you try and open under that moniker, I'd say.
Local council might not give you your,
No? I'm planning
license.
No. But it's my name. Maybe my name's Richard.
That's very true.
Yeah, I mean, fight for your right. I suppose.
There's like a pizza place around the corner from here that's called Taking the Pizza, but it looks like piss, like taking the piss. Pisser.
Okay,
Taking
I
the
see what
pizza.
they're doing.
But yes,
Feels like an AI name, that.
does a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah. So overnight, Saddle Rock oysters became the must-have delicacy. Prices shot up, and every seafood seller in town started slapping the name Saddle Rock on any oversized oyster. Became like a brand name, almost, like Aberdeen Angus or...
Wagyu. No,
Yeah,
Wagyu is
Wagyu.
actually a type of... Well, yeah, maybe it's Wagyu, yeah.
Yeah,
Kinda
it's Wagyu. You get away with that. Wagyu, yeah. Wagyu, good job. And just to give you an idea of how big some of these oysters were from someone who wrote about them at the time, a bloke called William Thackeray tried one. And within his writings, he said it felt like swallowing a baby.
Wow, why is that the first thing that comes to mind? Also, why do you think that you know what swallowing a baby feels like? I'm getting the word nonce. Can't be doing that. You can't be doing that.
I'm getting the word nonce.
Yeah.
No, you can't be doing that.
Couldn't be doing it. You don't reckon you could swallow a baby? What's the biggest
No.
baby you could swallow?
No, I don't know. I don't know, maybe like 24 weeks, I reckon.
24 weeks, yeah.
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 That's a good shout.
Yeah, I would. But if it was me, I'd have said something else. I'd have said like...
Oh, 100%.
But these New Yorkers weren't just eating the oysters. Well, they were eating them, but they weren't just doing that with them. They were competing to see who could shuck them the fastest. Great word, that. Shuck.
Yeah.
Shuck them.
Works
Perfect,
your
isn't
mouth out, doesn't it?
Perfect, yeah.
It's a good bit of
Perfectly,
work.
perfectly describes like the action as well, I feel. Shuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shuck.
Yeah, it's a bit of onomatopoeia.
Yeah.
I like it.
Oyster shucking contests were a huge deal in the 19th and 20th century. Shuckers worked side by side on barges, in restaurants, and in oyster houses, racing to pry open as many oysters as possible. And since they were paid by the piece, speed was everything. So they're paid by the amount of oysters that they can open.
Americans, they love sport, don't they?
They love
Find it
sport.
any which way, they'll do it.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And as is what happens with kind of these sports, regional rivalries began to develop. Manhattan versus Long Island, New Jersey
Oh my God.
versus New York, North versus South. Every year, the fastest shuckers on the Atlantic coast would gather for an epic showdown.
Shuck this.
Shuck this. One of these contestants was even held in Grand Central Terminal, which, did you go to? New trip, Miles?
Yeah, we went in there.
I've been
There
in
you
there.
go. So imagine that place just humming of oysters and people just...
It's a beautiful place,
Shucking 'em.
but it would fucking stink.
Have you been there, Dom? So you've been to New York, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been to
Sorry,
New
mate.
York when
Yeah.
I...
didn't give you that credit in the beginning.
Oh, well, I needed that fucking swag. Let's reel it back. No, yeah, I was there when I worked at Americamp.
I thought you were going to say I was there during 9/11.
Yeah, I was there on the big day. Yeah. No, I was just... Yeah, my camp was in Connecticut, which was near New York. So
Okay.
I holidayed there a little bit before, did a little week there, you know?
Very nice, very
Why
nice.
the devil not?
But yeah, no, if they were in the train station trying to do this shucking competition, I'm just trying to commute to work. I can't be fucked with that.
You're not
Get
having
away.
it. Get out my way.
No.
I have work to do.
Yeah. Well, apparently it drew massive crowds and a lot of heavy betting. People were betting on the shuckers.
Wow.
I managed to find some of these records as well from these competitions just over time. In 1885, one champion managed to shuck 2,300 oysters in 2 hours, 18 minutes, and 19 seconds.
That's so many. So many.
So many, right?
Are they eating
So
these
many.
as well? They're not going to waste, are they?
They've
Surely.
got to be eating them.
I'm not sure. Didn't really
Bro,
get.
no.
It didn't. It honestly didn't really say.
But
It's like how many people can crack an egg, right? You're not eating the eggs. You
No,
fucking
but there's
dishing the
also
eggs
there's
away.
got to be some sort of quality level of a shuck. Like there's a clean shuck where you get to keep your nice chunk of meat, and then there's just a jibbing your knife in there, making a mess of it. Is there not?
Just me under them.
What a great
So now-
Friday morning! I'm going to be late for work.
Turn up with fish fucking shit all down here. Like, so I'm late. I'm fucking eating oysters.
Bit drunk on oysters.
That would be crazy. What is crazy is the record of the ultimate speed demon. A Rhode Island shooker named Billy Loney.
Billy!
He once set the record by opening 100 oysters, 100, in 3 minutes and 3 seconds.
Fastest shooker in the West.
I don't think I could even pick up 100 oysters in 3 minutes.
Pick up?
Like, even if they were just like littered around, listed around the ground, I don't think I could pick them up in 3 minutes.
That's a fair shout.
But I don't know. I just don't get this as a competition because it's like it doesn't even like mimic anything in real life. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're just doing this useless task.
Well, no, it mimics their job. Like some people have it as their job. So you want to be like they have like barista competitions now, like
latte art,
fastest coffees, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe you're right.
It's just a sign of the times. I'm sure I saw a thing on Channel 4 once that like Domino's has a tournament every year where like any pizza chef from any of their outlets can go. Like, they'll be like, we've got an order come in for 2 meat feasts, 1 stuffed crust, off you go, and then they fucking do it well quick. Yeah, I'd recommend it to watch. I think it's called like King of Domino's or something.
Okay. I was going to say we should make a documentary about it, but someone's already done it.
Yeah, Channel 4, I think. But no, we could go and like try and compete. We'd just have to quit our jobs and get a job at Domino's.
Just
to get into this competition.
Yeah.
Anything for the pod.
Oh God. Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, I'm thinking it's a useless task, but I think, like you said, it's a sign of the time that's what was important to people then, and it's showing like how good you are at your job as an oyster shooker.
Well, they're also in abundance, right? They're not worried about them there not being enough oysters because for them it's an endless supply that is never going to run out. So
yeah.
But to answer your question earlier, Dom, only unbroken oysters counted as a successful shook, which meant everyone had to be open perfectly, every single one.
Wow.
It's brutal high-stakes sport. And you can make some serious money. A top shooker could earn $1 per 1,000 oysters.
Shook off.
But, in the 1880s, that's a lot of money. A really good shooker can earn $3 a day. Decent money.
Wow.
Back in the day.
Wow.
But as with all good things, New Yorkers took it too far. They ate through entire oyster beds at breakneck speed, often wiping them out in just a few years. So they discover a new one. It would be publicized everywhere. People would flock there. Seamen would flock there.
Sorry?
They are seamen. They're not fishing, are they? They're not fishing for these. You don't fish for oysters. You squirt for them. I don't know.
You squirt for them? What are we saying here?
No, what do? You net them? Do you net oysters?
You forage.
Yeah, you maybe like...
Forage?
Grab.
Yeah.
Grab. Oyster grabbers.
But you got to do things sustainably. This is the thing, like especially with stuff in the sea, with fish. You can fish, but you got to make sure that there's enough of the population to replenish. And
got to fish well.
That's it. And there's a tipping point with these things when you go over that point, and there's not enough of them they'll get extinct if you're not careful. I mean, I don't know about oysters getting extinct, but they'll stop turning up in the Hudson River, won't they?
Yeah, they will, and they did. Sad. Well, all this brings us to the seedier side of New York's oyster craze, because when you mix oysters, alcohol, and dimly lit basements, things get a little interesting. So, you're in 1850s New York. You've had a few lager beers, feeling peckish, horny, maybe a little lawless. Where'd you go?
Oyster bar.
Correct. Kinda. You go to an oyster cellar. Now, might sound classy. Maybe you might be picturing rustic basement, bistro, a bit of mood lighting, people wearing waistcoats, I imagine, shucking, the shellfish, bit of jazz playing maybe. Is that what you're imagining?
Gentleman's club vibe.
Yep. Yeah, wrong. No, so wrong. Yeah. No. Dimly lit basements where you grab a plate of oysters that had already been shook, ready to go, a pint of warm beer, and a prostitute.
One-stop shop.
Yep, original surf and turf.
Oh, God. One-stop shop for everything that you need that's moist and fishy.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Yeah, they weren't just pubs, they were brothels in disguise. A kind of Victorian hinge with maybe a bit less chatting, definitely more syphilis. Yeah, You descend into a smoky, sweaty cellar lit by lurid red lamps, full of boozy men clacking oyster shells and working women trying their best to make a bit of money and not die of tuberculosis.
That sounds genuinely good. I'd love to go.
Yeah? You'd like it?
I think I'd be in my element 100%.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we'll just leave you with that one. We won't let you explain yourself. One writer at the time, George...
I'm not going to permit you to try and get out of that in any which way. Moving
We
on.
don't want to hear any more about that.
One writer, or one contemporary at the time, George Foster, described the scene in one of his journals.
The oyster sellers, with their lamps casting broad gleams of red light across the street, are now in full tide, and every instant sees them swallow up at one entrance a party of rowdy and half-drunken young men on their way to the theatre, the gambling house, the bowling saloon, or the brothel, or, most likely, to all in turn.
Wow.
What I thought was quite interesting, there is actually an interesting theory that the term red light district might have originated from these oyster brothels.
Oh, these dimly lit oyster sellers with red lights.
Yeah, because in both New York and London, it was common for these oyster saloons to have red lamps hanging outside.
Oh,
Because that kind of indicated what sort of establishment it was.
Wow.
that's interesting.
Yeah. But
Imagine imagine being in Amsterdam and going into one of those little red light kiosks where the woman is, and she just shucks you a couple of she shucks you a couple of oysters before she sucks you off.
Like kiosk, like a car rental place at an airport. Kiosks.
I love, I've got booking 4 oysters and just a cheeky handy today, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
It can't be here long.
That sounds great. Or or one of the women should do that to make her business stand out from the crowd, from the oversaturated market.
Wow.
You get 4 oysters with every purchase.
That's a lot, that, isn't it? 4 as well.
Maybe two then.
Is this on entry or an exit?
She shucks them as soon as you get in there.
Okay.
Me or the oysters?
She shucks you off straight away. Yeah, I think that would just elevate the whole experience. Not that I've ever had that experience and don't know whether it does or not need elevating, but maybe there's a lot of them, isn't there? When you walk up and down, when you go, anyone that's been to Amsterdam, you'll know this. There's a lot of those kiosks. And,
Kiosks.
Kiosk is ridiculous, bro.
It's a crazy line to commit on as well.
And if someone is making themselves stand out from the crowd by offering, an extra shucking
A USP,
service,
if you will.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
it's an idea there.
Shellfish Sally.
Yeah.
Shellfish Sally. Oh, God. No.
This doesn't sound at all good.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
Pay 100 quid, she'll boil you a lobster.
Oh, and have you finished by the time it's done?
Yeah, and you come out feeling great. Freshly boiled lobster, ready to fucking eat on your way around. That sounds banging, that.
Yeah.
Red light district.
Everyone knows you've been to Shelley's because you're carrying a fucking cooked lobster around
And
with
you
you.
got a big smile on your face. He's been to Shelley's.
Yeah, it's like coming out of a theme park with a big toy. He's been to Shelley's, that little randy fuck.
Oh, dear.
And her little sign outside, Shelley's, the fishiest in town. Shelley's as well. It's perfect.
It's perfect, isn't it?
Called Shelley.
That's a mess.
Oh, God.
Oh, good.
Shit.
Shelley's.
Shelley's. She's not even called Shelley.
No.
No. She'll be Eastern European, I imagine. Plucked away at 14.
Better against the will.
Come on now. Oh, Jesus Christ. Wow. That's trafficking we're talking about.
Yeah, whole life's been shook open.
Sex.
Shout out. Anyway, let's move out. Let's move away from the seedier dives. Let's focus on some more of the respectable oyster sellers out there. The ones that are more catering to New York's upper crust. Let's get into Thomas Downing, the story of Thomas Downing. Super interesting fella. Wasn't just another oyster seller. He was the oyster seller He was born to enslaved parents on an island in Virginia in 1791. Thomas Downing grew up harvesting oysters, clams, and fish. But unlike many black Americans at the time, he received an education alongside the children of wealthy white landowners, which was kind of unusual at the time because, segregation is well still in effect. But it set him on a bit of a unique path, this unique opportunity that he was given. As a young man, Downing moved to North to Philadelphia, and then he eventually ended up in New York City in 1819. He initially worked as an oysterman, rowing out to the beds in Hudson, in the New Jersey waters, tonging for oysters. There you go, tonging is what it's called.
Tonging.
And tonging, yeah.
Seamen just out there tonging for oyster.
Just tonging for it, yeah. Once he tonged them efficiently, he sold them by the dozen.
Wow.
What a businessman. He had a reputation for essentially selecting the fattest, freshest oysters, and it quickly spread, this reputation. And by 1825, he had opened his own oyster cellar at 5 Broad Street in the heart of Manhattan's financial district. He was doing well.
Yeah.
He was doing well.
Yeah. You know what those New Yorkers would have been saying at the time? They'd be like, "Oh, I want to go there. He's a black man." And then they'd be like, "Yes, I know, but his oysters are perfect. You can see past it."
Yeah, it would be like, he does well for a coloured man. He picks out the best oysters.
That's it.
It would be that sort of just tone deaf ignorance. Exactly.
Yeah.
But unlike the rowdy, smoke-filled oyster dives of Uptown that we went through where Miles would flourish, Downing's Oyster House was an establishment of class. He decked it out with mirrored arcades, damask curtains, chandelier, plush carpeting, beautiful silverware. It was elegant.
Sounds bloody lovely, that.
It is, and it was.
I thrive there as well, by the way. I thrive in both environments, not
both
just one.
environments. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. The menu featured delicacies like oyster stews, fried oysters, and even stuffed oysters baked in cream sauce.
Ooh, all right.
This was an oyster saloon where business deals were made, where politicians lunched, and where a man could bring his wife without scandal.
Yeah, that's always nice.
Yeah. It was actually the only oyster bar in New York City where women who weren't prostitutes could eat.
Right. Okay.
As long as they were accompanied by the husband. Single women weren't allowed in. Oysters, too sexy. They need a man to make sure that they can
get too
eat an oyster
sexed up.
well. Exactly. Sexy, slimy Brita filters. Just get them loose, But behind all the glitz, Downing himself was running something far more important than an oyster saloon. You see, beneath the polished dining room of Downing's Oyster House, something pretty crazy was going on. In the cellars where barrels of oysters were stored, Downing and his son, George, were secretly sheltering enslaved people on their way to freedom.
Oh, bit of the railroad or whatever, underground. Is
The Underground Railroad.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, let's go, guys.
So New York was still quite a dangerous place for black Americans at the time. The Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 meant that even if someone had managed to escape slavery and made it to the North, they could legally be captured and sent back to their owners in the South that they fled from.
Bloody hell.
Terrible. So essentially what Downing did was, Downing was a free man, and he used his wealth and influence to protect those that had escaped slavery, and he hid them within his basement before they smuggled them north to Canada and complete freedom, where the laws, complete freedom, there's still probably a shitload of prejudice, but better freedom than...
no extradition.
Exactly.
Wow. What an actual, genuine, real-life hero. Good man.
Absolutely.
Very good man. And the best part is, the wealthy, oyster-slurping bankers, finance bros, politicians upstairs had no idea this was all going on. It was
And they're paying for it, probably. They're paying that money that they're slurping those oysters with. That's going towards freeing, these black men and women. So
definitely, I'm envisaging the scene from Inglourious Bastards, where the opening scene where he walks in, Christoph Waltz, and they're all underneath, but he finds them in the end, doesn't he? It's that, but he doesn't find them. And rather than drinking a glass of milk, he has a couple of oysters.
Slurping on a few oysters.
Yeah.
What a G. This guy's turning out to be a proper cool dude.
Yeah, super cool dude. And his success actually made him one of the wealthiest black men in New York at the time. But despite all of this, all of the success, all of the status that he managed to build up himself, he was still denied US citizenship.
Wow. He's contributed to the society. He's built an oyster empire. He's serving the elite of Manhattan, and he's still not considered a US citizen.
The law forbids it. The law forbids it. The law forbids it until April 1866, which happened to be the day before he died.
Oh, that's sour, isn't it? Just when you get what you want,
Terrible.
you get nothing else because you're done.
Yeah, awful. But his legacy did live on. His son George continued running the oyster business and carried on his father's abolition work. It was still a stop on the Underground Railroad for as long as it could be. And his reputation as New York's Oyster King remains unmatched to this very, very day. So Thomas Downing, interesting bloke. Very cool story. Nice work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good man.
Yeah.
Just very good man.
Very
That's all
good.
I've got for you, mate.
Yep. Let's get back to the white people fucking shit up, shall we? White folk.
It's where we love the most.
Exactly. So the New Yorkers, they were eating their way. We said it before, but they're eating their way through the oyster beds. A new reef would be discovered. Newspapers reported like someone would struck oil. Few seasons, gone. Cycle of boom and bust. But the booms were getting shorter while the busts were becoming more permanent.
Oh dear.
Bugger.
Bugger indeed. And even more of a bugger because they weren't just taking the oysters, they were destroying the entire ecosystem.
Ugh.
And by the
In the way that they're kind of harvesting them.
in the way that they are removing thousands of Brita filters from the water, whilst also contributing more pollution via industrial practices, via just the fact that there's more humans, more waste going into the rivers, water.
Just like taking energy out of the life cycle as well, right? Like those oysters would have been eaten by some other like apex predator.
Yeah, true.
So by the late 19th century, New York Harbour had started to change. The once crystal clear waters, filtered naturally by millions of oysters, were turning into a murky soup of sewage, industrial runoff, and garbage. The very
We just
thing,
can't bloody help ourselves.
exactly that. The very thing that had made New York an oyster paradise. This perfect mix of salt and fresh water coming together. The rock beds wasn't like that anymore. It was a toxic cesspool. The oystermen knew something was wrong, but they didn't panic, not at first. And then people started to get typhoid.
Oh shit.
And there started to be more and more typhoid.
So what's typhoid then? Hit me with that.
not
What
good.
does that do to you?
Yeah, it's not good. It's not something you fucking want for Christmas, tell you that. No. So it's caused by salmonella.
So it's like a form of food poisoning type thing then?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it kind of bacterial infection spreads throughout the body, affects a lot of organs, caused by
Deadly?
salmonella. Yeah, it can be. It can really fuck you up. Yeah. It's mainly common in parts of the world where there's poor sanitation.
Right, okay.
Children are thought to be most at risk. High temperature, headaches, nausea, extreme tiredness, cough, dead.
Another gift that you might leave Shelley's shack with.
Yeah, well, to be fair, that might be what you had at the end of a war. You might have had typhoid.
Yeah, probably was.
Milo and his curry typhoid.
Yeah. If on this upcoming trip there's any talk of a takeaway from an establishment that's got less than I want to say 4.8 stars,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Help
going
me
to have
out.
to be more careful.
bin it off.
Definitely. So in 1915, because of these typhoid outbreaks, New York City officials shut down all of the oyster beds in Jamaica Bay due to this, essentially the contamination from raw sewage. So one big series of oyster beds has been shut down.
Oh, so they think that the cause of the typhoid is the sewage that's been put into the river that's then being filtered through the oysters and eaten.
Correct.
So it's like human shit, basically.
Yeah, you basically they're filtering, like that's what they're filtering out of the water, so and then they're holding the bits that they filter to use to grow. So they're growing off of poo.
Yeah, that Brita filter has been in your toilet for the past week.
Yeah.
You've then just chewed on it. Oh no, it's not been in your toilet. It's been in a public toilet.
Yeah, it's in it.
Yeah, that's a
toilet.
communal toilet.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's 1915. By 1916, another outbreak of typhoid was traced back to oysters harvested from a lower bay near the New Jersey sewer line, the tide of which carried essentially waste from the sewage line into the oyster beds, directly into the oyster beds. So people were literally eating sewage-fed oysters.
Yeah, it's like they were forcing it in there.
Yeah.
It's like a flavour enhancer.
Yeah. Yeah, like a bit of Maggie or something.
Nice
Yeah.
and earthy flavour, these.
Umami.
No, that's just poo. It's not umami.
It's just shit. It's literal shit. In 1920, the New York Times published a warning which read,
Oysters, once plentiful and considered a frugal repast, are gradually being classed as luxuries and will soon become a delicacy.
the reason of which, pollution of the waters. That's why.
Wow.
Overfishing, pollution of the waters.
So that abundance disappears and they become a more luxury item, as this guy's saying. So the prices are going to go up. It's going to be available only to people of higher class that have more money, and kind of starts becoming this more high-end thing.
Absolutely. And as the years go on, some of these beds open up again. The Jamaica Bay one opens up. But in a few short years, by 1921, the health department shuts it down again. And it shuts it down again, this time permanently.
Really? Never again?
The bay had been sending around 80 million oysters to market every year, this bay.
Wow.
But because the water was so polluted, there's just no way to make them safe to eat. So all of those oysters were just left there, and all of that market was just shut down.
Wow.
So was there no other bay just up the road that was a little bit out the way of all the shit being pumped into the water that they could have just gone to and got? Or did it just so happen that this was the best place for it and it just happened to be on their doorstep?
Exactly. Like you can I think you can still go to like Maine or somewhere like that and get oysters up that way and along the East Coast of various places. But this was like the hub. The bay, the New York Bay was like the hub of it.
Right. Okay. So there was no easy fix. There was no easy solution, really.
No, exactly. The situation got so dire that in 1927, the last of the oyster beds in New York City closed, which officially marked the end of commercial oystering in New York City. Just like that, the oyster capital of the world had lost its oysters.
It's not much of a capital anymore, is it?
It's not, is it?
No, it's not. But even though the oyster beds had all shut, New Yorkers didn't stop eating oysters. They just stopped eating their own oysters. They still had oyster bars and people still love slurping them down. But by the mid-20th century, all the oysters being served in New York were coming from places like Chesapeake Bay and Long Island. So they were just getting them from elsewhere. The harbour itself kept getting worse. By the 1970s, scientists estimated that 14 million tons of sewage were being dumped into the Hudson River every year.
It's a lot.
That's terrible.
It's a lot, isn't it?
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
You know, in what should be a modern city that, you know, is potentially showing the rest of the world how to live in modern times. Mm-hmm. It's not good. It's not good.
And it stayed that way for most of the 20th century. You know, the idea of eating a New York oyster was about as appealing as licking a park bench. It wasn't good. The once thriving, I mean, it depends what park you're going to. Like maybe a gated community park, I'd be more up for it. But going to like a public park in Preston.
Yeah, that'd be the
Don't
worst.
know where that's been.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
The once thriving oyster beds were dead. The waters were toxic, and even the most reckless New Yorker wouldn't dare slurp down something that had been essentially marinating in raw sewage
Fair.
for decades, because they've not been harvested, have they? So they've been there for a long time. Just
Oh, so it's going to have compounded.
Yeah,
They're
probably
gonna be the worst
concentrated.
oysters you've ever had.
exactly. But nature has a funny way of bouncing back, doesn't it, boys? It has a funny way. For years, New York's waterways were considered a lost cause. People just thought, we've gone too far, it can't be fixed. But then something remarkable happened. People actually started giving a shit. They actually started caring
That's
about
nice.
it.
Wow.
Yeah, they actually started enjoying the environment, or trying to enjoy the environment, or thinking about how to enjoy the environment they were living in a bit better. They started to put in things that made the environment better. Clean Water Act, 1972. It forced cities to stop treating their waterways like open sewers. Who'd have thought it? Crazy, right?
Yeah, it's good stuff.
It's good stuff. Maybe just stop pumping shit into open water. Maybe stop doing that. Stop putting all this industrial waste from steel making, all those shit Ford cars that you're making, into the water. Just stop doing that.
Put it somewhere else, bro.
Somewhere else. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Put it under the ground. Next generation's problem.
Burn it. Yeah.
Burn it. Yeah, exactly. Send it to space. Do something with it.
Send it to space.
We just don't want it here. Get it up there.
Yeah. Ship it to Taiwan. You know?
You're never beating the allegations, mate.
Slowly But surely, the harbour began to heal. And by the late 1800s, environmentalists started noticing something shocking.
There's fucking oysters.
They were coming back. They were coming back. And they were looking healthy. They weren't so marinated in shit.
Yeah. Wow, they're coming back. Please don't tell me they jumped on it straight away. They saw one decent one. We're like, come on, we're back on, boys.
6 months.
Not quite. But it got people thinking, what if we could bring the oysters back forever?
Okay.
Maybe not to eat, but what if we could bring the oysters back to clean the water? And in 2014, it's exactly what a group of marine scientists set out to do. They launched the Billion Oyster Project, which is an ambitious plan to restore oysters to New York Harbour. And their goal is to build or to plant 1 billion oysters around the city's waterways to help filter the water and rebuild the lost reefs.
Bloody hell.
see, this is what happens. Modern scientists, they come up with a Nobel, prize-winning idea, and it's basically just do what they used to do. Yeah. Before all the shit.
Just unfuck what we fucked up.
It.
do what we already know works. Just, let's put oysters back in and then not eat them. And then
we'll be found.
That'll be great.
Sound.
Yeah.
Exactly that. And it's a long road. No one's under the illusion that they're going to be slurping New York City oysters anytime soon. It's going to take a long time for this to get right and for the bay to return back to its cleaner levels. And as one environmentalist put it,
in our lifetime, there's no hope we could eat them because the water contains heavy metals. But we want them back to clean the water and enrich the food web.
She was under the water on the reef when giving that interview.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She was planting some oysters.
Interesting quote, though. In our lifetime, there's no hope that we could eat them. The water contains heavy metals still.
Slight worry that she then goes on to say, it's going to enrich the food chain, though. What? With said heavy metals? Get a nice leady food chain.
Nice leady trout.
Yeah, surely they. But they'll have thought.
Mercury dip.
It's got a tang to it.
So, will New Yorkers ever be able to pluck an oyster straight from the water and eat it like their ancestors once did? Probably not.
Maybe in 2100.
Yeah, probably not anytime soon.
Leave them alone.
Leave them alone for now. The city is still fighting against pollution. And while the water is cleaner than it has been in a century, it's no way near pristine. But, the fact that the oysters are even making a comeback at all, somewhat of a miracle. They're trying to get there. And New York, a city that once ate its oysters into oblivion, is now trying to save them. It's, like you said, it's trying to redo and relive the way that people hundreds of years ago did.
Yeah.
Well done them for trying.
Well done them for trying. And who knows? Maybe one day when we're all there as tourists, we won't be going there for the bagels and the pizza. We'll be going there for the oysters, freshly shucked from New York City.
And that suits me fine.
Yeah, dream for Milo. That life's ambition.
Utopia. Yeah.
I like to put a full stop on this episode by a great, super short but great quote from Jonathan Swift. Does anyone know who Jonathan Swift is?
No, but I'm about to find out.
No.
Taylor Swift's dad.
So he was born
Jonathan
in
Swift.
1667, so probably not.
No, probably a triple great-grandfather then.
Yeah, he wrote Gulliver's Travels.
Oh,
right. Okay.
He has this brilliant one-liner, which, Miles, if you'd like to close us out with.
He was a bold man that first ate an oyster.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. You can say that about a lot of food, though. He was a bold man, the first guy who milked a cow and drank.
Yeah, but I feel like it's more self-explanatory to milk a cow than it is to
you do see babbies.
Oyster.
Yeah, fairs. Yeah, I mean,
some rock formation with a slightly alive, moving kind of.
Yeah, you've got to have been hungry to try that the first time, haven't you?
Yeah.
Bold.
Probably. So there you go, boys. Tale of New York City.
Boom.
Wow.
And oyster obsession.
Huge
obsession.
Shucked it.
A whole industry, like you said, everyone was crazy in love with oysters at one period. It was pandemonium everywhere.
Oystermonium.
They loved it.
Wow. So a lot of the success of Manhattan and New York kind of rests its shoulders on that obsession with oysters.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Impressive.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I didn't know anything about it.
No, nor did I.
Proper integral part of American history as well, isn't it? You talk about New York, the most quintessentially American city, and it's a big part of their history and how the city's identity was formed. Interesting stuff. And oysters, just in general, they're kind of a weird, mysterious thing.
Yeah.
I feel like you either love them or you hate them sometimes.
And you love them. They've got Milo's mark of approval.
They have. They absolutely have. Yeah. The freshness, the vibrancy. Sometimes it's just what you want.
Vibrancy.
There's nothing quite like it.
Right, come on, let's
This
wrap it
oyster
up.
is vibrant.
Milo could be here all night just using adjectives to wax lyrical about fucking oysters.
Yeah, cut me off.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. Oysters. That was fantastic. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
New York's oyster obsession. So thank you for listening, guys. We really appreciate you being here, sticking around to the end of the episode.
Charles.
I hope you enjoyed that. And yeah, if you want to follow us, you can. We're on socials, on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. You can follow us over there and come say hello. We're posting clips of the show and little bits and bobs, so come and say hi. You can email us at whatthefoodpodcast@gmail.com. You can say hello over there. You can suggest a dish or just come and have a chinwag. Come and chat about Scran.
Yeah.
So what are we looking at next time, Andy? What's next on the menu?
You're in a jungle. It's 40 degrees.
Pretty hot.
You've got mosquitoes in places you didn't know you had crevices. There's only one thing standing between you and a complete and spiritual enlightenment. A scoop of lukewarm lentils, a powdered milk chaser, and a man in mirrored sunglasses shouting about socialism while high on prescription drugs and narcissism. Welcome to dinner time at Jonestown. Next week on What the Food, we're tucking into the strange, sad, and often stomach-turning worlds of some of the world's most notorious cults. We're going to break down 5 or 6 cults, and we're going to look and explore the diets, the food that they were allowed or told to eat to achieve spiritual enlightenment. It's our first little foray into crew crime.
Crew crime.
Crew crime.
It's going to be grim because a lot of cults aren't very rich to start with, at least. And so, you're looking for cheap, quick hits. I'm excited. I love a bit of crew crime. I'm my favourite, so I'm excited.
Crew crime. Yeah, well, like you said, they're building from the ground up, but they're also using it as a way to, they're using food as an avenue to manipulate and to control as well in a lot of ways.
Exactly what we're going to be covering.
Oh, I'm excited.
Looking forward to that one.
And we all love a cult, don't we? Cults are cults. They're interesting.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating part of the human experience that this thing happens and people join them and end up doing crazy shit that they would never imagine themselves doing.
Absolutely.
They have it. Talking about crazy shit that you'd never imagine yourselves doing. Make sure to tune in next week.
Absolutely.
Hey.
Wait. Why are they not imagining themselves doing that?
Well, I don't know.
All right. Well, thanks again for listening, guys. Hope you enjoyed that, and we will see you soon. See you later.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.